Ever wondered if what you see is actually what exists? Welcome to the intriguing world of optical illusions, where perception and reality often clash in the most fascinating ways. As we journey through this captivating realm, you'll find your senses tested, your mind puzzled, and your curiosity piqued. Optical illusions are more than just clever tricks for our eyes. They're intriguing puzzles that challenge the way we interpret the world around us. They play with light, angles, colors, and patterns to distort our perception, making us question what is real and what is illusionary. So, what's the science behind these deceptive visuals, you ask? How do our brains interpret these complex images? And why are we so captivated by them? The answers to these questions lie in the labyrinth of human psychology and neuroscience. Prepare to have your perception challenged as we dive into the mind-boggling world of optical illusions. Optical illusions, they are more than just fascinating pictures. They are captivating riddles that play with our perception, challenging our understanding of reality. But what exactly are they? Simply put, optical illusions are images that deceive our brains into perceiving things differently from what they truly are. They exploit our visual system, fooling us into seeing things that are not there or are different from how they appear. Let's take a stroll down the lane of some common optical illusions. You've probably seen the famous ambiguous image that can be perceived as either a young woman or an old woman, depending on how you look at it. Or perhaps you're familiar with the spinning dancer illusion, where a silhouette of a dancer appears to be spinning either clockwise or counterclockwise, again depending on your perception. These are classic examples of how our brain interprets visual information, sometimes leading to multiple interpretations of the same image. But how do these optical illusions work? The answer lies in how our brains process visual information. Our brains are constantly interpreting the light that enters our eyes, trying to make sense of the world around us. However, this process isn't perfect. Sometimes our brains fill in gaps with assumptions based on past experiences or expectations. This is where optical illusions come in. They trick our brains by presenting visual information that contradicts our expectations, leading us to see things that aren't really there. For instance, consider the famous illusion of the straight lines that appear to be slanted because of the alternating black and white squares. Despite what our eyes tell us, the lines are, in fact, perfectly straight. It's our brain that's been fooled into thinking otherwise. These delightful deceptions captivate us, reminding us of the incredible complexity of human perception. They illustrate the fascinating interplay between what we see and what we perceive, showing us that these two aspects don't always align. Our brain, it seems, doesn't always interpret what our eyes see. Our brain, a complex organ, is the mastermind behind these illusions. This all starts when light enters our eyes. This light is converted into electrical signals that our brain interprets to form an image. But here's where it gets interesting. Sometimes our brain can be tricked into interpreting these signals in peculiar ways, leading to what we know as optical illusions. Imagine walking into a dim room from bright sunlight. Initially, everything appears dark, but gradually your eyes adjust and you start seeing clearly. This is your brain gauging the context and interpreting what's around you, even when the information it receives is not complete. This process is known as perceptual filling in. Perception is our brain's best guess of what's happening in the outside world. We don't just see with our eyes, but with our brains. Our brain uses previous knowledge and expectations to fill in the gaps and make sense of what we are seeing. This is why we can recognize faces in clouds or see patterns where none exist. It's not the eyes playing tricks on us, it's the brain. Now let's talk about filling in. Our brain constantly fills in missing information in our visual field. For example, our eyes have a blind spot where the optic nerve connects to the retina. We don't notice this blind spot because our brain fills it in with information from the surrounding area. Optical illusions take advantage of these quirks of our visual system. They provide just enough visual cues to make our brain think it's seeing one thing, when in fact, something else is happening. It's a clever play on expectations and assumptions. The science behind optical illusions showcases the intricacies of our brain's visual processing system. From the way light is captured by our eyes to the complex interpretations made by our brain, each step in the process is vital. Optical illusions are not just fun tricks, but they're also a testament to the remarkable capabilities and sometimes the limitations of our visual system. Optical illusions aren't just fun tricks for the eyes, they're insightful tools for psychologists. Now you might be thinking, really? How can these playful images help understand something as complex as the human mind? Well, the answer lies in the way our brains interpret these illusions. You see, the brain is an incredible processor. It takes in raw data from our senses and transforms it into something we can understand. This is perception. But sometimes this process isn't as straightforward as it seems. This is where optical illusions come in. Optical illusions create a unique situation where the brain's interpretation doesn't match the physical reality. They challenge our perception and cognition. By studying how and why our brains are fooled by these illusions, psychologists gain valuable insights into the inner workings of our minds. For instance, let's consider illusions that play with depth perception, like the Ponzo illusion. When our brains misinterpret the size of objects based on their perceived distance, it tells psychologists a lot about how we understand depth and space. Or take the phenomenon of color constancy, where we perceive colors as being the same under different lighting conditions. This reveals how our brains make assumptions about light sources and shadows. And it's not just about perception. Optical illusions can also shed light on cognitive processes. Consider the Stroop effect, where the name of a color is written in a different color, and you're asked to name the color of the ink, not the word. This simple task can be surprisingly difficult, showing how our brains process language and color. Optical illusions also help psychologists explore the relationship between conscious and unconscious processes. They can show us how much of our perception is automatic and how much requires conscious thought. So you see, while these deceptively simple images might seem like just a bit of fun, they're actually serious tools in the science of psychology. They provide a unique way to probe the mysteries of the human mind, helping us understand how we perceive and interpret the world around us. Optical illusions are not just fascinating tricks, they're windows into the workings of our brain. Scene script. Ready to test your perception with some mind-boggling optical illusions. Let's dive into a few captivating examples that will challenge your sense of reality. Consider the classic illusion of the young lady or old woman. At first glance, you see a youthful lady, but upon closer inspection, an elderly woman's profile emerges. Your brain is constantly flipping between these two interpretations, demonstrating how our perception can shape our reality. Next, there's the intriguing rabbit or duck illusion. Depending on how your brain interprets the image, you'll see either a duck or a rabbit. Interesting, isn't it? The same image can lead to two vastly different conclusions. This illusion underscores the role our mindset plays in how we perceive the world around us. Let's move on to the spellbinding world of 3D illusions. The hollow face illusion is a prime example. A mask that appears to be convex suddenly looks concave when rotated, despite the physical reality remaining unchanged. This illusion showcases how our brains prefer familiar interpretations, favoring the perception of a convex face. Another classic is the Penrose triangle, an impossible object that can only exist in drawings. Its hypnotic form tricks our brain into perceiving a three-dimensional object that could never exist in our three-dimensional world. This illusion underscores how our brains can fill in the blanks to make sense of the impossible. Lastly, let's examine the checker shadow illusion. Despite appearances, squares A and B are the exact same shade. This illusion demonstrates how our brains interpret shadows and highlights, showing that our perception of color is relative to its surroundings. These optical illusions remind us that what we see is not always the reality. They serve as fascinating reminders of the incredible complexity of our brains and how our perceptions can be influenced, distorted, and at times completely fooled. So next time you trust your eyes, remember, they might just be playing tricks on you. So what have we learned about the captivating world of optical illusions? Well, we've discovered that these intriguing visual tricks are much more than simple images designed to fool our eyes. They're a testament to the complex workings of our brains, revealing fascinating insights into the mechanisms of perception and interpretation. We've dived into the science behind optical illusions, understanding that they exploit the brain's strategies for making sense of the world around us. By playing with light, color, and perspective, illusions challenge our assumptions and force our brains to fill in the gaps. We've also explored the psychology of optical illusions, learning how they stimulate different areas of our brains, triggering multiple interpretations and sometimes even creating a sense of motion where there is none. From Escher's impossible objects to 3D illusions that seem to jump off the page, we've witnessed some truly mind-boggling examples. The next time you come across an optical illusion, remember, it's not just a trick of the eye, but a testament to